The first time my father ever told me I was practical, he said it the way other dads say, "I'm proud of you." Practical, not brilliant, not ambitious, not impressive, just practical. And for 16 years, that word followed me around like a shadow at every holiday table. My name is Grace Thompson. I'm 35 now, and last summer at our family reunion, my dad tried to put me back in that little practical box in front of 30 people. He didn't know I'd already outgrown it. Before I take you there, I want you to picture this with me. It's late August, humid, sticky Ohio air, the kind that makes your hair curl at the edges no matter how much product you use. There's a rented tent in my dad's backyard, white folding chairs, Costco sheet cake sweating under plastic wrap. Someone's Bluetooth speaker is playing old Tim McGraw songs too loudly, and on an easel, right by the grill, is a poster board that says in thick blue Sharpie, "Thompson Family Success Share." He really wrote that. When I pulled into the driveway and saw it, I actually laughed, out loud, alone in my truck, because I knew exactly what this was. But let me rewind a little. Growing up, Derek was the future, Megan was the pride. And I was the one figuring it out. That's what Dad would tell people. This is Derek, Stanford grad, engineering brain like you wouldn't believe. This is Megan, surgical track, smartest girl in her class. And this is Grace, he'd say, smiling like he was being generous. She's good with her hands, good with my hands, like I was a hobby. At 19, I started an apprenticeship with Uncle Bill. Electrical work, long days, scraped knuckles, steel-toed boots, sweat running down your spine by 9 a.m. I loved it. I loved seeing something broken and making it work again. I loved flipping a breaker and watching a dark room flood with light. Dad hated it. "You're too smart not to go to college," he'd say. Which sounds supportive, right? Except what he meant was, "You're embarrassing me." Derek would smirk. Megan would stay quiet, and I would swallow it. Thanksgiving when I was 23, Derek brought a PowerPoint on his laptop, yes, seriously, about a startup he'd invested in. Dad plugged it into the TV. We all watched like it was the State of the Union. When it was my turn to share, I talked about passing my master electrician exam. Dad nodded. That's practical. Ouch. You'd think I'd stop showing up. But my mom, Linda, she was the glue. The warmth in that house. The one who'd squeeze my hand under the table and whisper, "Don't you dare let them shrink you." She died 4 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. Fast and brutal. The last week in the hospital, when it was just the two of us and machines humming, she looked at me and said, "Grace, promise me something. Anything. Don't disappear just because they don't see you." I promised, and that promise is why I was sitting in my truck staring at that poster board last August, instead of driving back to Columbus. Here's what nobody at that reunion knew. I'd been building something quietly for 17 years. My contracting business had grown from just me and a borrowed van to 6 employees and steady commercial contracts. I bought my first duplex at 27. Ugly little thing with green carpet from 1983 and cabinets that smelled like old onions. I paid cash, fixed it myself, rented it out 3 weeks later. Then another property, then another. I lived in the smallest unit of the first building for 3 years to save faster. I drove the same F-150 until the driver's seat foam gave up. I didn't do vacations. I didn't do designer handbags. I did spreadsheets on Friday nights and Home Depot runs on Sundays. By the time I was 35, I owned 8 rental properties. No debt, no loans, no investors. My net worth was just under $1.4 million. And I had never told my father. Not because I wanted to surprise him, but because I was tired of offering my achievements to someone who treated them like consolation prizes. So when I walked into that backyard and saw Derek already holding court by the grill, vest pressed, sunglasses perched like he'd stepped off a tech podcast, I just breathed. "Grace," Dad called when he saw me. "You made it." "Of course I made it." Derek clapped me on the shoulder. "Still running wires?" "Still solving problems," I said. He chuckled. "Someone's gotta do it." Megan hugged me tightly. Too tightly. "Just get through today," she whispered. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a casual share your updates thing. This was going to be a show. An hour later, plates loaded, beer cans cracking open, Dad tapped his fork against a glass. "All right, everyone," he boomed. Your mother always loved hearing what her kids were up to. So today, we're celebrating success. He gestured to the poster board like Vanna White. "Derek, kick us off." Derek stood like he'd been waiting for this his whole life. He talked about his VP title at a SaaS company in Austin, about leading 60 engineers, about compensation packages and equity, about their new lake house rental property just for summer weekends. Nothing crazy, he said with a wink. People oohed. Dad's chest looked 2 inches wider. Megan went next. Fellowship at a top hospital. Published research. Long hours, but worth it. More applause. Then Dad turned to me. "And Grace," he said, smiling that tight smile, "tell us what you've been up to." There it was. That familiar heat in my chest. That instinct to minimize. To say, "Oh, just working." I almost did. Then Derek's son, 8 years old, asked, "Mom, is Aunt Grace rich like Dad?" Kelsey laughed awkwardly. "She works hard." Derek added, "Different kind of work, buddy." And something inside me just clicked. I stood up slowly. "I run Thompson Electrical and Development," I said, voice steady. "We've got 6 employees now." A few polite nods. "I also own 8 rental properties in Franklin County. All paid off." Silence shifted. Dad blinked. "I don't carry debt," I continued. "No mortgage, no business loans, no credit cards." Derek frowned slightly. "My net worth's around $1.4 million. You could hear the speaker crackle in the quiet. Someone dropped a fork. Dad actually laughed. "Now, Grace, we don't need to exaggerate." "I'm not." Derek leaned back. "From what?" "Duplexes. Triplexes and single family, too," I said calmly, "plus retained earnings from the business." His jaw tightened. Mr. Martinez, our neighbor who used to work in banking, cleared his throat. "Free and clear properties in this market? That's significant." Dad looked between us like he'd missed a step in a math problem. "You never mentioned any of this," he said. "You never asked." There it was, 16 years in one sentence. Derek scoffed. "Net worth on paper doesn't mean liquid. It means ownership," I replied, "which is more than paper." Kelsey's face had gone pale. And then, this is the part nobody saw coming, Megan spoke up. "Grace helped me refinance my loans," she said quietly. "She's the reason I'm not drowning right now." Heads turned. Derek stared at her. "What?" "I owe $340,000, Megan said. "And I didn't know what to do." Grace did. Dad looked stunned. "You never said you were struggling?" Megan let out this shaky laugh. "Because you only celebrate wins, Dad." Oof. You could feel the air change. And then Derek muttered, "At least I didn't skip college." It was soft, petty, defensive. I looked at him, not angry, just clear. "I didn't skip anything," I said. "I chose differently." That's when Kelsey's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and went rigid. "Derek," she whispered. The lender emailed again. He shot her a look. Too late. Mr. Martinez had already connected the dots. "Interest-only period ended?" he asked gently. Derek's face flushed deep red. The lake house rental? Leveraged? The Tesla? Leased? The boat? Financed? I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Because this was never about beating him. It was about finally refusing to shrink. Dad rubbed his forehead. I didn't know." "That's the point," I said softly. The rest of the reunion unraveled slowly. Conversations splintered. Guests left earlier than planned. The poster board stayed propped against the grill, looking ridiculous. Later, as I was walking to my truck, Dad called my name. "Grace." I turned. He looked smaller somehow. "I'm sorry," he said. Not loudly. Not performative. Just quiet. "For what?" I asked. For thinking success only looked one way. I held his gaze. "It doesn't." He nodded. "Your mother would have been proud." That one almost broke me. "I hope so," I said. The months after that weren't magically perfect. Derek's company restructured. His title changed. The lake property sold. He and Kelsey downsized. Megan stuck to her payoff plan. She sends me screenshots when she hits milestones. "Look, under $300K, with like 10 confetti emojis." Dad calls once a month now. Sometimes we talk about work, sometimes about nothing. He doesn't compare anymore. I think he catches himself when he's about to. Last Christmas, he introduced me to a neighbor and said, "This is my daughter Grace. She runs her own company. No qualifiers. Just that." And you know what? That was enough. I'm not sharing this story because I hate my family. I don't. I'm sharing it because I know what it feels like to be the less impressive sibling. The practical one, the quiet one, the one they assume won't amount to much because you chose a path they don't understand. If that's you, please hear me. Success is not a performance. It's not a title. It's not applause at a barbecue. It's ownership of your choices, of your time, of your life. And the moment you stop asking people who misunderstand you for permission, that's when everything shifts. If this hit home for you, subscribe to Revenge Diary. Seriously, this space is for the women who built quietly, endured quietly, and finally decided to stop being quiet. And if you know someone who's still sitting at that table shrinking themselves to make others comfortable, share this with her. She might not say it out loud, but she needs to hear it.